And we now cut across to our guests joining us on the broadcast. I'd like to introduce Dr. Suvro Kamal Datta. He's a foreign policy expert. Prabhu Dayal, he's an author and former diplomat. And with me in the studio is Major General Sanjay Meston, defense analyst, retired. Major General Sanjay Meston, if I could come to you, sir, to really get your point of view on what do you think the military objective of the United States behind this action was? Deterrence, destruction, or domination?
The military strategy of Israel and United States has converged only on one point, and that issue is ensuring that Iran does not go for nuclear weapons. That was their military or a strategic objective. Have they achieved that? Yes. Whatever President Trump has stated that, plants have been obliterated. Of course, Iran is denying it. But if that has happened, then I think it takes them back in time, at least 10 odd years. It is very difficult for them to recoup. So they have achieved their military objective, and that is why President Trump has clearly stated that now the way is only peace. And if Iran continues with its offensive strategy, thereafter we will target other strategic targets, and also it will, result into tragedy for Iranians. So keeping that in mind, I think they have achieved their objectives. But the whole issue is now how it will unfold. That is the whole issue which anyone would be interested in. And my analysis is, firstly, let's come on to Iran. Any nation, when it plans any strike or a counter strike, it has to decide on options, and options are generated on your capabilities and also on weaknesses. What are the capabilities of Iran? As on date, it has three major capabilities. One is, of course, the ballistic missiles, which, of course, has been degraded to quite an extent. Number two, their capabilities is the militias. A large number of them are available even in a country like Iraq. And third is, of course, terrorism, that they have stated that they can attack Israeli and US civilians anywhere in the world and even take them hostages. So this is the strength. Now, what are the basic weaknesses? Basic weaknesses is, firstly, air defense they really lack now, and that is why there is total supremacy on air by the Israelis and of course by the Americans. Number two weakness is they have large number of oil refineries and of course gas plants. Imagine tomorrow, that is what President Trump has hinted. If Iran plans to do something, then these strategic targets will also be sorted out, and therefore this will result into tragedy for whom? For the Iranian people. Because they will not get the basic needs. Inflation is already about 38% in Iran. When gas, oil is not there, food prices will go up, food will not be available, and there will be heavy migration of people to Armenia or to Azerbaijan or towards Turkey, which is happening. Of course, Pakistan has closed its border. So considering all these weaknesses, and of course, the combined strength of United States and also of Israel is the biggest weakness for Iran. And fourth point is, Iran today stands strategically isolated. Who's helping them truly? And even if Iran thinks of doing something, of targeting US interest in any of the US bases in Middle East, the outcome would be, there would be a resentment by these Gulf states or the Arab countries against Iran, so further isolation, and in the long term, this will become a permanent divide between the Iran and the rest of the Arab world. So things are not conducive for Iran today if they have to take a logical decision, but perhaps they may not be very logical. They have to show to the public. So they may do something of targeting some of the interest, and the easiest target for them could be the American embassy oblique, the US base, which is of course in small numbers, which is in Iraq. So the militias can be used because they have to show something to the public. And if that happens, then the full onslaught of United States will be there. So the end state has to be decided only by one country, and that is Iran. If it continues to go on a throttle and full offensive, I think then their staying power is also going to lack, because one fine day, as brought out by Israeli, that Levy, perhaps they may not be able to fire so many of the missiles because their launches are also being targeted. So it's a very difficult situation as on date for Iran to prolong this conflict. And since 7th October, imagine, Israel has been fighting quite well with the ring of fire, with the axis of resistance. They have decimated everyone. I would not say decimated, but they have weakened. And today they are taking head on Iran, and quite boldly. And you see the people of Israel, the kind of discipline they have despite the bombings and all. They go to the shelters and they come, normal life starts. So there is no panic among the civilians.
Right. Right. Prabhu Dayal, I want to come to you on the point that Major General Sanjay Meston has made. Iran has been urging for global support. But that is a far-fetched expectation, because even to garner a consolidated support from all Muslim nations is not happening for them. How lone a fight is it for Iran that they can even talk of prolonging this conflict?
Well, you know, I served in Iran as the deputy to the ambassador in the early 90s, and even then, Iran would try and garner more support from the Muslim countries, but it was not able to do so. All these countries which are to the south of the Persian Gulf, like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, were suspicious of Iran because it had expansionist designs. Now, General Meston is absolutely right in saying that today, because of the US and Israeli strikes, Iran has been weakened considerably.
Right.
Moreover, all its proxies have also been weakened, like the Hezbollah and the Hamas. The Houthis have some fighting capability left, and they are threatening strikes. But nonetheless, Iran today is much weaker than it was, for instance, 2 years ago. However, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Command is unlikely to surrender and could keep on fighting with the risk of some sort of danger that it could pose to the shipping through the Hormuz Straits, and it could affect that shipping. Nonetheless, you know, I think that there could be more trouble for the Iranians if they escalate. And the question which everybody is asking is, will the Iranians now attack the US bases in the region? You know, there are around 40,000 American troops stationed in the region. Already they are on high alert. And if the Iranians try and attack these bases, there would be massive counterattacks. So there is a fear of an escalation of the conflict because of what the Iranian Revolutionary Guard does, and because of the fact that they cannot take things lying down. And therefore, for that, you know, there could be more regional chaos and an escalation of the conflict.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us before I bring in Dr. Subro Kamal Datta into this conversation to really play out the possible scenarios that lie ahead of Iran when it comes to retaliation. Now, like we've been discussing, that it could possibly level attacks on US bases or Israel is something that it has been saying. Now, when it says that we will retaliate, in what form? And how far will they be able to target these critical US bases or even Israel? The other option, of course, is to use the proxies. So Hezbollah or Houthis may target US or allies. Now, this is a route that Iran has been taking for the longest time, which experts now believe could have backfired and led to Israel and US coming on Iran so strongly. But given the fact that it may not be able to afford a direct confrontation, will it resort to this way again? Targeting US via cyber warfare, of course, is certainly an option that Iran could consider. But will it be effective? Will it help Iran to save face, given the fact that it is saying that we will not back down in any which way? There could, of course, be secret actions against US interests, but if they do that, which also means that on the face of it, they will have to say that they surrender or they take a back seat. What is the possibility of that is the big question. NPT withdrawal is certainly something that Iran is mulling, or the sort of statements that they have made. How far is it possible? Because they continue to claim that America bombing critical nuclear sites in Iran has not had any impact on their assets, and they will continue to boost nuclear enrichment. Of course, limited strikes is an option they may choose as opposed to a full-fledged war. But in that scenario, will they resort to diplomacy? What is it that they can possibly do? Let me get more answers from Dr. Subro Kamal Datta, who continues to be with us on the broadcast, to also understand that China and Russia have both come in on this. And in fact, Russia has said that their critical assets remain the same. We are willing to provide any help possible, but they will continue to develop their nuclear program. Beijing has said that US bombing on Iran nuclear sites pushed the situation in West Asia further towards an abyss. Given the fact that Iran is claiming critical assets are unharmed, in that scenario, would you say that today's exercise was in vain?
Well, I would say that the immediate goals of United States of America and Israel has been achieved. Fordo, then Isfahan, and the third nuclear site has been disseminated, as far as I understand, because the kind of bombardment which United States of America did, and especially with the bunker buster bombs, after that, for any nuclear reactor to remain functional is next to impossible. So US has achieved what it wanted for preventing Iran from becoming a nuclear power state. That's one. The second thing is, like, as far as I understand, what next after this? Houthis, the Hezbollah, and the Hamas, it's not completely disseminated. It still has a lot of teeth. And I understand that these three dreaded military terrorist organizations would try to create a suicide attack on US bases as well as on the US Army. That's one. The second scenario is like Iran would try to go more devilish, and it would try to attack the US bases in Middle East and the US Army. If that happens, then there is further devastation of Iran. That's another thing. In relation to our regional alliance happening, that's not going to happen because the Arab states are Sunni states, and Iran is a Shia state, and historically there has been animosity between Iran and the Arab world. So a kind of a Muslim confederation happening, that's not going to happen. My immediate concern and long-term concern is China and Russia has invested crores and crores of rupees or millions of US dollars in Iran. And the question is, like, now there is a talk of a regime change. If the regime change happens, it is going to be a puppet Western-controlled regime which would be imposed in Iran. Will China and Russia accept that? That is a big question. So what I understand is, like, the next 1 week or so is going to be extremely volatile. If there is further expansion of war, then things might go out of control. Our concern as a country for India is, like, we have invested a lot of money in Char Bahar. And that is a very, very important port for us strategically and geopolitically. So that is something which needs to be safeguarded. And how we do that, that is a big question. But what I understand is, like the way the Honorable Prime Minister once again reiterated that it has to be through diplomacy, and both the parties should come to table and negotiate the issues out. As far as the intelligence report of United States of America says that Iran had already succeeded in, purifying 87% of the fissile material. And the moment it is 90%, then you have the capacity of, creating a nuclear bomb. So withdrawal of Iran from NPT, and then coming out of the assurance, no first strike, in relation to nuclear capabilities, that is something which is a dangerous proposition. And I think situation is extremely volatile there. Need of the hour is, like, as far as I understand, President Trump of United States of America cannot bring in peace single-handedly in Middle East. There has to be participation of Russia as well as of India and other important countries for, coming up with a final peaceful solution. If that doesn't happen, and if other important players do not come into it, I think the flare-up will aggravate all the more, and that would be a huge problem for the international community.
Right. Dr. Datta, I also want to make one more point with you, but before that, I'd really want to understand from Major General Sanjay Mestin. Trump had sought 2 weeks for a decision. Why is it that he decided to strike in 2 days?
Oh, absolutely. That was a part of surprise and deception. And I think I stated in a few of the channels that definitely that is only a surprise and deception, but please don't take it. Definitely the attack is likely to be there before. And there was another thing, there was some movement from the airbase in Qatar, some movement of, the aircrafts were shown, the C-130 Hercules and all.
Right.
I think that was also part of surprise and deception. And of late, President Trump was making statements every day. So this was to create confusion on the enemy and the rest of the world. But he was very clear, his intent was very clear that on so and so day they will strike. And even if you recollect the 2 weeks time frame he had given, he says, I'm not sure about the capability of the GBU-57 bombs. So this was all surprise and deception, and which is one of the foremost principles of warfare for any war. Surprise and deception is one of the most important aspects. And you look at Hamas, the way they struck on 7th October, that was also surprise and deception.
Right.
So everything today in warfare, you look at Op Sindoor, we also did total surprise and deception. So this has become a very, very important facet. And even yesterday when the bombers were moving from Guam, I think that was again part of surprise and deception. Keep the enemy guessing. But let me tell you, if you go into the Iranian mind, they would have also guessed that something will definitely happen. Only thing is they were not aware when and what
that
time.
is why they are saying that they had moved their critical assets